Okay, welcome everyone to another edition of Philip K. Dick Talks and the Psychedelic Film Festival. Today we're very happy to have Edgar Pera, probably one of the most prolific directors in the world today. Uh, Edgar is a genuine original with over 100 films and multiple retrospectives. Even if Pero is never shy about his inspirations, role models, and heroes, many of whom he references include Ziga Vertov, Robert Anton Wilson, Branquino de Fonseca, Rudy Rucker, Fernando Pessoa, and more. However, his works never feel dead-leaden. The first phase of Edgar's prolific work starts in 1895, shooting the Portuguese rock in the Portuguese rock scene in a neuropunk style. Edgar Pera's AKA Mr. Ego, and Man Camera and Arthur Cianero with sound and music. Reproduta Interdita, Edgar's first official picture, was shot in 1988 in the ruins of Chiado, a neighborhood in Lisbon's historic center that suffered a major fire that year in a post-apocalyptic set, where he would later shoot in other films. In 1991, Pera wins the Grand Prix of the festival films at the Architecture, Bordeaux, with the city of Cassiano, a film about the Portuguese modernist architect Cassiano Branco. After this consensual film, Pera chooses to make more radical works like SWK4 about the futurist artist Almana Negreiros and Manual of Evasion LKX94, starring counterculture thinkers Terence McKenna, Robert Anton Wilson, and Rudy Rucker. In 1996, Pera founded with the elementalist writer Manuel Rodriguez the Academia Luso Galactica, a transmedia working and learning space. During that time, Pera directs several short films like Zombie Town 23 and 25, and Adventure and Democracy, Lisboa Boa, A.E., The Misadventures of Man Camera, and the feature A Janela, premiere at the Locarno Festival in 2001. In 2004, Edgar Pera has his first international retrospective at the Worldwide Video Festival in Amsterdam. The programmer and director Tom Vlet wrote, Pera's work has both political and philosophical dimensions. His imagery evokes all silent films and Russian and German pre-war cinema. For his next retrospective at the Indie Lisboa Film Festival in 2006, Olaf Mora wrote that Pera is too different from everything we regard as correct, valid within the culture of film, or realistic in a cinematic form. At Indie Lisboa Perpetual Movements, a cine tribute to the legendary Portuguese guitar composer and player Carlos Paredes, he wins awards in almost every category. And months later in Paris, Pera wins the Pasolini Award for his career along with Alejandro Jodorowsky and Fernando Arrabal. In 2007, Pera directs another controversial film, Heavy Architecture, starring an intense working relationship with producer Rodrigo Arias that lasts until now. The Baron is his first feature to premiere at the Rotterdam International Festival, an adaptation of Branquino de Fonseca's homonymous masterpiece. In 2011, Pera started to work intensely in the 3D format for his doctoral thesis. Two of these were adaptations of the work of the modernist poet Fernando Pessoa, Lisbon Revisited and the Portuguese. But Pera's most controversial 3D film to date is Cinesapiens, one of 3 parts of 3x3D, the other 2 parts directed by Jean-Luc Godard and Peter Greenaway. This closed the Semaine de la Critique of the Cannes Film Festival. Finally, in 2014, Pera directed a pop comedy, which was his first commercial success in Portugal with over 120,000 spectators. In 2016, 2017, another two 3D features premiere at the IFFR, The Amazed Spectator, a Kino investigation about spectatorship, the synthesis of his doctoral dissertation, and Delirium in Las Vedras, a neuropunk fiction documentary. In 2019, as a work in progress during Veda's most complete retrospective, the Rotterdam Film Festival features, this is with 26 sessions, features Lovecraft Land, with texts of H.P. Lovecraft, music by Randolph Carter, aka the legendary Tiger Man, VJing by Claudio Vasquez, mixed with live images shot by Pera and performances by Iris Cayette and Dominique Pinon. In 2018, Edgar Pera premiered at the Indie Lisboa Festival The Spicy Man Dialogues with Mr. Pepper, which was a poetical documentary, and his featured Magnetick Pathways is his third Branquinho de Fonseca adaptation starring Dominique Pinon. Premiere at the São Paulo Film Festival and at this year at the Psychedelic Film Festival. 2000, Pera rejects both the label of experimental or even psychedelic cinema, preferring works like unconventional and experiential to experience it afterward as something he or she can inhabit. Pera is now finishing his most ambitious feature, Now Sao Nada, The Nothingness Club, a psychothriller about the poet Fernando Pessoa and his multiple literary personas. He's also preparing a film about the imaginary correspondence between Lovecraft and Pessoa, telepathic letters. Well, that's quite a mouthful. Welcome.
I'm tired of listening.
Just tired
of listening about
yes,
so much stuff.
Well, I very rarely come across directors with such a wide body of work as yours, and it's really impressive that based upon some of the work that I've seen, that you never stick to one style. That you're always playing around with different styles depending upon, I guess, what your unconscious or what your muse shares with you. So tell us a little bit about how you got started in this, because a lot of us here at our PKD and psychedelic forums are filmmakers, and we're all wondering, well, how do we get started? Especially we're doing independent film. How do we get our foot in the door? How do we break through? How do we get our images and our sounds and ideas across? So tell us a little bit about your journey.
Well, maybe we should start with distribution, because I think this is to make the film. The most difficult is to get your work known outside your neighborhood, and that's the problem I never quite solved, actually, because if you have this option of making your very singular individual films, you have to expect that people will have the same attitude they had to the avant-garde before, and it's part of the history of art to have this kind of reaction. So, but at the same time, we want to be accepted, but at least by the people open-minded and that what are interested in art. So for me, well, it was a bit the punk movement that inspired me to just take the instruments and play, and even if you don't know enough, let's just use this raw energy to make something real and original at the same time. And even if I did cinema school, I felt like I didn't know anything at all. So I had this video camera and I started shooting, and I would go to the concerts and shoot, and there was this sound technician would always tell me, when will you bring a real camera to the place? Because the camera I was using, it wasn't supposed to be for a film, and so I had to spend many years fighting this prejudice against small formats, and but it was an advantage for me, because since I could be shooting daily, I learned a lot, and I learned to think with the camera and not with the pen. So I could do films more organically, because what I do is to react to what's happening, okay, more than having some kind of storyboard to do a very Stalinist film with or Hollywood film. It's the same. It's you have to have everything approved before you shoot. It's like a menu, and so I had this learning process of thinking with the camera and then thinking with the editing machine, and that's how I started. I started. There was in the beginning there was a great problem, because you couldn't show films in video in the film festivals.
Right.
So I would shoot a monitor in 35 my videos, and then I could I could project them in cinema festivals. So that's how I started, using diameter cameras, and then just for one day I would rent a camera or get a friend to lend me one, and I would just spend the film, the duration of the film. So I could do that, and then I got some people who liked my work and started asking me to do films. And since I never compromised, they will respect me and will have to accept like my own singularity, like Manual of Evasion, Alex 94, which was done for the capital of the culture. And I brought these 3 counterculture guys to Lisbon.
Right.
And it could be seen as a provocative thing to do, but I thought it was really important to bring the avant-garde of this kind of thoughts about psychedelic, shamanism, fourth dimension, and all the concepts. Just one second. And so that was a very important film to me, because I would shoot in 35, but still hand out camera a lot. I would do camera. So I could, for me, the most important is to really know the technology and make the technology just an extension of our brain.
So you let the camera do the talking, essentially.
And in the editing, it's the same. It's the film that tells me what to do, not the script I have beforehand, because most of the ideas you have, well, they're not really yours. It's all the influences and everything that you've seen and all that. But when you react to something that is happening and you put the camera, and in that moment you choose to put the camera where you think that it's important, then something original can happen, because all the influences are, they are still there, but you have to be fast to answer to what's happening in front of you. So then I think you can create things that, are a bit unconventional. Yeah.
Did you always want to be in film or in the arts? And what was your, that's my first question. And during those early days, which was clearly you were forging ahead with your very distinct style, how did you stay focused and how did you persevere? Because there are often a lot of people who give up, who they decide to sell out to the system. How did you stay focused and, despite some early challenges, to break through and really make those films? Because it is a process. How did you do that? And who were your role models with that?
Well, my role models were my parents. They helped me a lot, and they didn't have much money at all, so they would help me. And I had lots of friends who helped me also. So I think I couldn't have done so many films if I didn't have this net and this complicity with people who wanted to really do things, actors, technicians, and everybody felt they were doing something unusual and different. So I think that's enthusiasm may be the key to
Right.
when you, because doing films only by yourself, I would prefer to write or paint than do that.
Right.
I think the most important is to get a group of people and never think that cinema is an individual art.
Right.
It's not. And sometimes the more freedom I give to the actors, the more they give me. And some people say, "Oh, but you don't direct the actors," and it's not true. I discuss a lot what I want to do with them before, but even when I'm seeing something that I don't like, I never do cuts or do differently. I wait the right moment to say that there was this guy working with me who told me, "You only tell the actors what you really want in the fifth take." And I think it's a bit true, because you have to let them do what they feel is the character, and respect them as artists, because they thought about the character and they have their own vision. So even if I don't really like it, I try to understand what they want to do and let them try to do the best way. And then I say, "Oh, okay, but just don't be quiet," or whatever action I tell them to do instead. But I think the key is to treat everybody that works with you as an artist.
Right.
Not as a technician, not as meat.
Right.
Hitchcock style of approach to actors.
Yeah, that's really true. It's a collaborative. I always see that filmmaking is an emergent process. It comes from the merging of various minds, fusing of various minds, and something very special. And then a really special film comes out. Tell us a little bit about this, your Manual of Evasion, which you mentioned earlier. It seems like a departure from some of your earlier works. Tell us a little bit about what made you want to reach out to Robert Anton Wilson, Terence McKenna, and Rudy Rucker.
Well, as I told you, it was for the European Capital of Culture in '94, and I read some books by Robert, and I was really into this kind of undoing of of our personality, and doing off the part of the personality which really it's not yours. And Rudy Rucker, I was interested in, well, as Robert Anton Wilson, they are science fiction writers. And since I love science fiction, and well, Philip K. Dick is, of course, one of the most interesting writers in any field. And so I wanted him to talk also about this, because he was part of the cyberpunk movement, and he has this trans-realist manifesto, which had this, well, he had this approach which I would identify with, which was to find the fantastic in the daily life, and imagining how reality could be changed by our perception, and also the unpredictability of your own work. You cannot do things and know everything that what you're going to do. You have some kind of an idea of a beginning and an end, but all that's within, it's a process, and this process, to be organically efficient, it has to be unpredictable, even to the author, even to the writer or to the filmmaker. And that part, it's always very important to me. And with Terence McKenna, it was different, because they all stayed 5 days, but Terence, we got along very well, and he stayed for 10 days, and then he became the protagonist of the film. And it was the one I would know less. I just read Food of the Gods, and I've heard him doing these things with the Shaman group. And I really liked the way he talked, and the inspiration, the motivation, and the way he would pick words, the right words to convey some kind of almost hypnotic suggestion in you, like a shaman.
He was certainly a highly articulate poet. I mean, I would say he has a very unusual way of putting words together, as rightfully corrected, transforming the person's consciousness. In fact, right here behind me, I got probably a book you've read. It's called The Invisible Landscape.
Yeah.
This is really this is the one that got me going into Terence McKenna and his and his time wave theory. And right there you go. And the I Ching it, and I think absolutely riveting exploration of the nature of consciousness. Unfortunately, I never saw Terence, and I actually wanted to see him, but the year before his passing, it was sold out. I was the Open Center here in New York City, and it was sold out, so I never got to see him. But Robert Anton Wilson, I did meet twice back in the late 90s, and again, he was just like Terence. He would talk in this kind of a very even but drone-ish way that would put people in a trance. And would pass, and I said, "What happened? Missing time? What happened to her?"
Actually, when I was in New York in 1990, I bought this book. That's where I found Rudy and Robert. This text, and it was the beginning of this journey.
And in fact, I think we have a clip here that you sent us, right, for Terence talking about. I can let me show.
during the shooting, it's a funny moment I just found in talking about me.
Okay, great. Let us see. Let us show the audience here.
An experience I had in the Amazon in '71 that I wrote this book about called True Hallucinations, where it was sort of like this film. I mean, we seemed to find our way toward it was sort of like being kidnapped by flying saucers, but different, you know? Kidnapped by a mad Portuguese film director, but different.
Yeah, a little different.
Yeah, I think Edgar has us in the movie he really loves, and these films he makes are just an excuse for the ongoing movie of making movies, of being Edgar, you know? And Fellini was exactly the same way. We are his characters.
Mr. Edgar.
Look, he chose us all, and he tells us what to do. He gives us our lines, and he puts us through this incredible gauntlet.
But I don't think he's expecting what we are doing.
But I always try to the more I direct, the less I say.
Yeah. He's not expecting what you're doing.
The more I give freedom to people, the more they do what I want.
Well, this is a kind of mastery. It's possible that you're a genius, not in the way that everyone always tells you that you're a genius, which they always tell directors this,
No.
but it's possible in a slightly more profound way.
He's mastering the surprise.
And he's made a life worth living.
I miss Terence.
That's a beautiful clip there. It's he was truly a true visionary. So Manual of Evasion. What was the reaction? I mean, there are various elements here that are certainly could be very disruptive to a lot of people who are used to more traditional, conventional films. What was the reaction when you screened it before the?
Well, actually, Manual of Evasion is some kind of time bomb, and it's exploding very slowly, and it makes, I think, it makes lots of sense now. But when it premiered in Lisbon, there was an high ovation because the sense of humor of the film, with also the actors that played in the film, made some kind of counterpoint to all these avant-garde ideas of the three of them. And so I tried not to make a propaganda movie, okay? I tried to give different points of view, and same time there was a comic scene with something very serious being said. So I try not to do this kind of propaganda film. And at the same time, as you can see, Terence has lots of sense of humor. And so we talked about the film later, what to do with it, and try to promote it in the States. But, like Zombie Town 23, it's also done with things we did here with Terence. And I was thinking of doing a film only about him in Lisbon, and then he died, and I didn't want to do it. And last year, when there was the 20 years of his death, there was this commemoration, and I went through my archives and had the courage of starting to do a feature about him. So that's where I took this part of this clip you've just saw.
It seems like Terence McKenna's legacy lives on, and it seems like almost every year more people learn about his work and and there's something special about him. Have you met Dennis, his brother Dennis McKenna?
No, I just exchanged mails with him recently with this event commemorating his 20 years of his passing. So no, I'm aware of his books, but well, I only met them because I invited, and they were. It was great because I didn't have to really convince them. They were happy to come, and
right.
They would deal with the unknown very well. So they didn't know me at all, and but they accepted, and everybody was great in their own ways. But of course, Terence, there was this relation that that was some kind of transcendental emotion we had. And Roberts also died, and
right.
And so the only one I'm still in contact is Rudy.
Rudy,
yeah.
And you say you're working currently on a feature or a film on Terence.
Yeah, well, in when I have the time to do it, because
right.
I have so many projects going on now that.
Well, I know that one of the I know that your Lovecraft has been also you when I was reading your bio. It struck me that you actually put together a cine-concert based on Lovecraft. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, Lovecraft Land is it's an old idea because since I was a teenager that I started reading Lovecraft first in comics like eerie and creepy, and then Metal Hurlant, and when I started reading his prose, he has also this kind of incantatory prose, this hypnotic prose. Also, and in spiral, sometimes it's all around one event, and you know the event first, and then you try to understand it, and so. I'm really interested in him and in his contradictions, his phobias, all the phobias he had to other to ethnic phobias, everything that he had, and that he used that creatively. He didn't go to politics. He went to make art and create monsters based on these phobias. So. I believe he was a good person with lots of very negative ideas about mankind, but he put it in a positive way. So he is some kind of detached observer of humanity, and he realizes and he makes us realize the insignificance of our position in the cosmos. So this Portuguese poet, Fernando Pessoa, is also a bit like that.
Mm.
And they lived in the same era. Actually, I'm going to do a documentary, well not really a documentary, a film about the imaginary correspondence between the two of them. After this, I'm going to do, we just got a grant to do it. It's a small grant, but we can do it. And so I'm going to make a movie about this, everything they wrote. And there's lots of coincidences. So I'm making a film about this correspondence that never existed, but it's all based on their letters and fictions and poems. And Lovecraft Land is a cine concert where I shoot the actors and the musicians shoot live, mixed with images, with films that are already done, and with my images, and where Claudio does the VJing of changing the colors or whatever we decide to do, and whatever he decides in the moment to do. And this interaction, it's a film that only exists once. So it's something you can actually you can watch in YouTube a version of the cine-concert, but it's just two cameras, my camera and another camera. It's not really what happened, but you can watch it in my channel.
So the way, so you would say Lovecraft is a kind of installation, like you have been shooting the cameras and you have images in the background and you have the actors.
We do. Well, it's a concert. Well, it's a film projected. It's 2D and 3D film. When there's a film in 3D, people put the glasses and a grip. And the other parts, it's where we do things live, and there's the image. The images behind the actors or the musicians. And I'm shooting. Sometimes I shoot a lot in feedback, so you have multiple images in front of the screen. So there's lots. I play a lot with that, and with speed also. So with the shutter, and so it's something that only the spectators that are there. It's like going back to theater in a way. Right.
Now, are you planning on bringing this to the US, I guess, once the pandemic is over? And
well, it was scheduled. Actually, it was scheduled to the 25th of May last year in MoMA.
Oh, okay.
At the time, we would go there and promote the Magnetick Pathways also. And this happens, and here we are all now.
The whole year has been almost a surreal moment. It's taken out of some strange book. And in fact, I was recently rewatching Magnetick Pathways, and there were two moments in the film that are really kind of capture what's going on. One is the moment where one of the characters, the one who portrays the groom, says Donald, and I find it very, very humorous. And
it's not the duck. It's not the duck.
Yes,
it's not the duck.
And the other one was the lockdowns. Even though the lockdowns were created by the state, but there is a sense of siege mentality, at least in the first few months of here in the U.S. when we were all locked down. I mean, we really couldn't.
Yeah, and you have drones telling people to go home, which happened here in Portugal, at least it happened. Yeah, in Spain also, drones would be there saying people go home, and in that way, well, it was not prophetic because it was already there, all these instruments of repression. And even if I agree that everybody should stay at home, we have to worry about the use of this kind of technology to control us.
Now, any chance that Lovecraft Land will be rescheduled, or have you heard anything from Doma?
Even if it won't be there, I think we'll be doing next year.
Year,
yeah, if everything's better, of course. But I intend to go there to shoot in Providence and New York for the documentary. So we're trying to do, and me and Rodrigo Areias, the producer you talked about, is also a filmmaker, and is going to film in that also when we go there. So we're trying to this bunch of mad Portuguese going to the States. Yes. and of course Paulo Furtado, the legendary Tiger Man.
He did the music on
the Magnetic Pathways.
That's right.
Yeah, he's a great musician. You should listen to his music. It's everywhere, and he has this distinct style. Well, he doesn't sing in the film, but if you listen to those musics with him singing, they're really great. So,
tell us a little bit about Cinesapiens, because it was definitely what you referred to as one of the most radical. Tell us a little bit about the work and your inspiration for that.
Well, it's a short story, short history of the cinema spectator, from the silent movies to 3D and beyond, to this kind of that's Professor Lovecraft with a K instead of a C, and it's Keith Asher Davis who portrays this mad scientist who has these lines from the short story From Beyond, which I made the movie also, so it's this condensed story of cinema, but in a very ironic way, and so I think some people didn't really like it or didn't get it, or and since it was in between Godard and Greenaway, there were the fans of Godard, the guys who liked Greenaway, and I was in between this battle, and so it was really some kind of fracture in the spectators who saw also the film, because, well, I got new friends and I got new enemies.
Wow.
Because in every country, because the film went everywhere, so it was really a provocative film, but I didn't see it that way. It was only provocative at the eyes of some spectators that thought I shouldn't be doing that, and I shouldn't be doing that kind of 3D with overlaps and things that people were not supposed to do in 3D, where, well, you can see a screen, and in Cinesapiens I say that you can say the screen as, there's two ways of watching at the screen as a window and the screen as a canvas. And I see it as a canvas, where I don't see it as something that you watch and see reality. I see the materiality of film, and I see something that it's art. It's not reality. So if you do that, well, there's lots of prejudices about what's supposed to be cinema.
Well, it's interesting that the people who quote unquote claim to be the avant-garde, like Godard and Greenaway, consider your style too iconoclastic. So you broke their reality tunnel. That's their reality tunnel. Which
well, in the end, I was glad, but at the time, you always want to be outrageous, but in this kind of world, it's not like when the Surrealists kicked out a guy because he sold too many copies of a book.
Right.
It's not that anymore. You don't have groups like that anymore.
Yeah.
If you're too successful, get out of our movement because you're not doing the right thing.
Do you think that right now, given the proliferation of media, both online and offline, is there more support for iconoclastic directors or individualistic like yourself, or less? I mean, where do you see the direction going right now?
Much less.
Much less. Okay.
Yeah, because, well, if we're talking about the festivals and the critics and the juries and all that, if you watch the films that are now in the main festivals of Europe and 20 years ago, and it's much more one kind of film, or two or three kinds, most of them with a simple narrative, some of them with a poetical narrative, but mostly more and more based on some kind of realism, with the new shapes, new colors, but there's this notion that we have to tell a story, and you have to catch the spectator, and there are some unwritten rules, but you have to apply to them if you want to go to the main festivals. You have to apply those rules to your own films, which I don't, and that doesn't mean that my films are better than those, but it means that some of the festivals that were supposed to bring people with them, they start to follow the spectator.
Right.
And there's less people who risk, and the risk that they talk a lot in between. There's a lot of inbreathing in this kind of environments. So we need fresh opinions, and I always expect that younger people are much more open-minded to different kinds of approaches.
Right. Well, that's where the battle continues. Battle of the corporate monolithic framework versus the individualistic spirit of liberation. That's where you come in.
Let's hope so.
Yes, I have here one of our commenters says a positive review of Pera's retrospective at IFFR was titled "What the F I Just Watched." And,
yeah, it was a very positive one. Actually.
Very positive.
Yeah, because that's a great feeling.
Sure. Tell us a little bit about that retrospective. What films did you include in that retrospective, the IFFR?
What films?
Yes, well, some of your major.
Well, Olaf Moller, he was the programmer, and he chose the films. And, well, there's the films we talked about and some others, but I was puzzled when he chose instead the film I did about Carlos Paredes. He chose Virados do Avesso, which was a pop film I did in 2014, and because he said it was the continuation of A Janela, and here in Portugal, people really, the critics, they didn't like the film at all. I wasn't worried about that. Well, I'm never really worried, but in this case, I was really interested to see if I could do a film that was popular, that 100,000 spectators.
Right.
In Portugal, it's still a lot for 10 million,
right,
or less than 10 million people. And the film after that was seen many, many, many times on TV, so he's been watched like by millions of people already. And well, going back to what you asked me in the first place, what should we do to keep going and making films? One thing I have is that for me, there's no wrong subjects. There's no wrong, there's always an approach to a subject. So if they ask me to do this film about this guy who's gay and lives with another guy and loses his memory and believes he's an heterosexual, I say, okay, why not doing a film? It's almost Philip K. Dick's story.
Right.
It's a guy who lives in an artificial world. He doesn't know about it, and everybody knows, but he's trying to go to strip clubs and all that, trying to prove he's not gay. But it's a romantic comedy, and so I did it because I found it funny, and it was made like in 6 months, the whole film. It was really fast cinema, and that film went to the retrospective, and people laughed a lot there, which I wasn't not really expecting that. I thought it was more for the Portuguese, but in here it was really people didn't get it. Well, lots of people did get it, but the supposed cinephiles thought it was I shouldn't have done that.
Well, that's where you tell them that you have your own style. That's where you're forging ahead. I guess it was a huge honor to have that retrospective there at IFFR.
Yeah, it was really great because they did like 26 sessions. I went to talk to almost every one of them, and always very interesting talks, and it's really important festival because it doesn't go with this trend of just choosing one kind of films. It's a very wide and open-minded festival. And so since the Baron that I showed there 10 years ago, it's the festival where I premiere my films there a lot, because it's really, and it's not competitive, which I like also.
Right.
It's only competitive for the first comers, for the guys who make their first features. And so you're going there just to show the film, and have some parties also, because it's a great place to be, Rotterdam, and the people are really nice, and everybody's into cinema, not business.
That's true.
Which lots of festivals are a lot about that, selling.
Yes, a lot of them have these markets associated with them. So let's now turn to Magnetic Pathways. I have here a clip that I'd like to share with the audience. It's I think it has Dominique Pinon. Give me 1 second, and then we can talk a little bit about it. Oh no, I don't. I'm sorry.
Dominique is known for Delicatessen and the Alien.
Yes,
filmed by Genet and Caro, and he's a great guy.
Yes, let me see here. I can find it. Microsoft. Now, I'm sorry. I thought we had it here. Don't have it here. But tell us a little bit about the film.
Well,
as you mentioned, well, actually, one of the most captivating images is the opening scene where Dominique is having this dream.
Yeah, with the drowning daughter.
What was the inspiration for that?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure. Because this is a project I have for long time, like 20 years. I started thinking about it, and then 5 years later I tried to do something with it, and so it evolved. It has many layers of ideas, and since it was a film the story is in the 30s of last century. So I updated it and created some kind of parallel universe where the extreme right won the elections in Portugal, and there was this very authoritative regime where the liberties were, well, we had fascism, so
Right.
50 years ago, and I was a kid, so I knew the feeling of oppression, and it was not really violence, it was mostly psychological violence.
Right.
And so I used that as a fuel to some of the ideas, and also again, when I was talking with Rodrigo, the producer, he told me, "Oh, I know. I had one scene I wanted to do in studio," and he told me, "Well, tell me, don't you want to do the film in studio?" Don't. And he said, and I said, "Of course I would. I love to work in the studio when I have means to do it, and I want to project images, and I want to create this kind of artificial reality so that we can be in the mind of the protagonists." And that's one of my obsessions, is to make films where you go inside of the head of the protagonist and you inhabit a world. It's like you go visit someone, you meet him for the first time, and if it's interesting, you want to meet him again. So I wanted to make this kind of films that are like not buildings, but yeah, you can go there and visit, and when you go there in second time, you watch different things, because now you're not paying attention to the narrative, you're just paying attention to the colors or the sounds. And by the way, all the colors of the film and all the overlaps, people call it psychedelic because of that. And I understand that it's really, well, it's not accurate, but I understand what it means, because you cannot say just unconventional, or it's difficult, or even experimental. It's well, the process can be experimental, but the result is not.
Right.
You have to work a lot till you find the right pieces. It's not just shooting and making an installation and that's it. So the words, my most psychedelic film, actually, or at least what people call psychedelic, it's Lisbon Revisited, which is an immersive film in 3D. It's on my YouTube channel also. If you have 3D TV, there's not many people, but some have, and you have that version online. It's very immersive, and since all the colors are changed when it's daylight and they're only normal at night, you have this kind of negative daily life and this dark at night. So it's, people tell me and that it's psychedelic, and I showed it to these students, and one of them, they were like 18 or something. One of them said, "Well, I've never experimented psychedelic drugs." He wanted to be very explicit about that, but I suppose this is the same as taking one. And I said, well, that's a great compliment, because I think we can go to altered states without drugs, and maybe altered state cinema would be a great concept also, because it's what I want to provide to people is some kind of altered state of consciousness that they see film and art from a different angle.
It's kind of reminiscent of what Jodorowsky wanted to do when he attempted to do Dune. He wanted to create a film that felt like an LSD trip. Of course, in his case, his budget was a little too high for the studios at that time.
Yeah, it's very difficult to go mainstream and do this kind of films because it's an investment, and they expect to have some kind of profit.
And Magnetic Pathways, you do a lot of superimposition, multiple images.
Yes.
Often Dominique over what's happening, and you're changing the landscape to reflect his internal emotions. It kind of reminds me a little bit of what Antonioni was doing back when he did his first color film. I can't remember it with Monica Vitti, but it was the Red, I think, where he was playing using color, saturated color, like what you do to specifically signal an emotion that the character is having.
He would paint the walls and all that, and it's the same. Well, it's the same principle of using the screen as a canvas.
Right.
It's that principle. You can go back. Well, you can go back to Méliès, and Méliès, he would create artificial words where the essence of cinema was in itself and not really in other arts.
Right. For the audience, I just want to let the audience know that Magnetic Pathways, for instance, won grand prize at the Vortex, the Vortex Award at the Rhode Island International Film Festival, the Experimental Film Festival at Glendale, and of course the best psychedelic film at the Psychedelic Film Festival. It's gorgeously colored and mesmerizing, and I believe it's now available, right, on Prime Video.
Yeah, well, that was all of that was thanks to Marjorie Wilson, who did the distribution in festivals and insisted on doing that based on liking the film mostly and having some kind of affinity with what was said in the film. And so that's the work of her, and we didn't do more because of the pandemic, because we were starting to promote the film in the States, and but it's thanks to her that happened.
So it's now available on Prime Video. Have you thought of using and I know you do have a YouTube channel where you actually have clips of some of your works.
Yeah, most of my works are there.
Can you just tell us so I can type it here for the audience to see? It's just called Edgar Pera Films, or what is the name of the?
Just my name. Just type my name and it will appear. There's not many Edgar Peras in the world, I know.
Great. Have you thought of of just like you use the screen as a canvas? Have you thought of using the online platform as part of a larger installation where you have online and film, and because it seems like it's now becoming an integral part as a result of the pandemic of how we communicate. I mean, as a platform for having part of your work there and part of your work live, part of your work. So it would seem to be that's something that is, I haven't seen much yet, but that will be something that you might be interested in exploring.
Yeah, well, I do it as some kind of research and mostly for fun. I do in Facebook lots of live with the special effects. I use the effects, they're available, and there are many. So I use that. Sometimes we do performance live with some actors, but I never did it really in a site or even in YouTube. I tried once, and it was not so environment. In Facebook, you get reactions, lots of things that I had to do something to get in contact with a different audience. And I'm so sorry with my own work that I only use Facebook Lives for well, some kind of therapy.
Sure.
Yeah. But everybody who has Facebook can watch it. It's for everyone. Everything I do, it's not only for my friends, it's public.
So you have currently working on multiple projects right now, and
yeah,
where do you think is the next? Where we'll be able to see the next Edgar Pera work?
Yeah, well, it's called Não Sou Nada, the Nothingness Club. The Nothingness Club. It's my most ambitious fiction because it was with a bigger budget. Well, not the big budget for Hollywood. It's 1.3 million euros, which is a lot for a Portuguese film, but not much for the ambition of the film. But it's I'm really happy with the result because it's about the Fernando Pessoa imaginary worlds. Because he created more than 100 literary personas, invented authors of fiction, prose, essays, with different points of view about the world, like reactionary, anarchist, romantic. He had all the visions inside him, and he created different writers to sign each of them. And then he would change the opinion about it and make someone sign like he existed.
Right.
So I imagine this club where everybody would work for him. And he has this, there's a story that develops, a love story, of course, or a triangle story. And there's a serial killer of heteronyms, because heteronyms are the literary personas that he invented. And there's a serial killer of them in the story. Spoiler.
Are you currently? I guess are you currently in pre-production for this?
No, I'm editing the film.
You're editing the film, okay?
Yeah, we shot in the summer. We isolated ourselves for 1 month, and we would do tests before entering, and would come in, then would get out, and that's it. So we had this kind of family together for 1 month, where we shot in the same place in an old factory, which had all the interior was still in the 30s. So we could use this this retro look with everybody dressed up and like they were in the 30s. But yeah, it's also another film where you go inside the head of someone and go crazy with him. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, when do you think you'll be releasing it?
Well, next year for sure.
Next year. Okay.
I wanted to finish this year, but I'm so happy with the result. I want to spend more time.
Great. Yeah.
It deserves all the attention.
And as for Lovecraft Land, possibly next year as well?
Yeah. That's the plan, to have the premiere in the States of Nothingness Club and do Lovecraft Land and shoot the film about Pessoa and Lovecraft, which is, well, they're going to meet in the future. And I also have another film, which I don't know yet which is the title, if it's Kinorama, if it's Beyond the Valley of the Grill, or both, or another thing. But it has also Lovecraft in it. And it's my last, I don't know if it will be my last 3D film, but, well, it's so difficult to show films in 3D that after doing almost 20 films in 3D, I must give up, I think, for a while. And it has also an interview with S.T. Joshi, one expert in Lovecraft. And there's lots of texts of Lovecraft in that film, even if it's a theoretical film about the future of cinema.
Have you thought of doing anything with Philip K. Dick or?
I did a small short film, actually. Well, just a friend of mine, an actor, reading some texts about being an android and how to make some kind of sabotage to the television that spies us and make it used against the state. So I did that, and I always wanted to do. But I think they already did Radio Albemuth.
Yes, Radio Free Albemuth. That was actually one of the first films we screened in 2012 with John Allen Simon, because some of his early films are still in the public domain, early shorts. I'm sorry, and yes, there's some of them are. Yeah, they're in the public domain.
I didn't know.
And there's a stream of, and you know what the thing about the reason I asked is because within Philip K. Dick, just like in your film, some of the films I've seen of yours, there's kind of a stream of consciousness aspect of it.
Yeah, that's it.
And very few people have been able to really take Philip K. Dick from the novel and do a true adaptation to the film. I mean, a few here like Scanner Darkly, but not too many. So I just wanted to throw that out.
Well, the film, The Truman Show.
The Truman Show, yeah.
Truman Show is more Dick than many Dick films.
That's true. That's true.
It's much more. I'd love to do that because you have to get in his mind, and that's a crazy mind to enter. And I like that challenge to go to people who have these really different thoughts about humanity. And I have to check which stories are available.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of the late 50s are that we've shown some of them. All the films we always show on our festival are adaptations from those earlier stories because they're in the public domain. But there are a few, so I'll send you some links as well after the call, and we can follow up, because I do think that you're the kind of director who would give it justice, truly give it a kind of empathy.
I have also a project, a long-time project of adapting it's Red Hook from Lovecraft. It's called the Spiral of Fear, and it's also a film about these phobias and all his racist, this racist detective,
right,
who has this problem with all this difference, and I like the idea of exposing that.
Right.
I am not afraid of that. It's good to have that to show, and so there's lots of interesting aspects. So, but that's another project that I have lots of scripts that were not shot.
Well, we have a lot to look forward to. You're certainly not short on ideas and projects, which is good. I mean, and different and original. So that's really.
And I'm also a comics fan.
Okay.
I love comics, so I've been collecting interviews since 1990. Well, when I was in New York, I went to Art Spiegelman's apartment to interview him. I met someone who met him, and since then I interviewed Will Eisner, lots of Jim Woodring, lots of guys, and now I'm doing a TV series with all these interviews I did the last 30 years, actually.
When can we expect to see that? At
the end of the year, I hope. Yeah, it's a 13 episode series. I interviewed Ed Brubaker, Jerry Robinson, who invented Joker, and lots of guys. Well, some of them are not with us now because they're all, yeah, Rick Veitch, lots of guys in Dream and Sawgraph. So yeah, it's there's some comics that deal with dreams, like Zograph and David B. Also, that interests me. And Jim Woodring is, for me, a great artist with his Frank stories. That they're really psychedelic.
Right.
You know them.
Yeah.
Frank. Yeah. So yeah. And it's, when you ask me about influences, yeah, comics are a great influence in the beginning.
Any work with VR or
I had a project actually, but I don't know. I never liked Walkman. When people are listening to music in the streets and all, I don't like to be cut out from my senses. So I like it. I like the idea. I like what I saw in the potential of VR, but I don't think it's my thing. It's too individual.
There is one feature, or actually a short film that about 15 minutes long, which is really long for VR. It's called I, Philip, and it was 360. It was from the. It's the POV shot. So essentially, it's of the robot whose head, the head of the robot whose head was stolen back in 2005. David Hansen had an android of Philip K. Dick, and his head was stolen on the way to a festival. So that head finds itself in someone else's laboratory. So the whole story is told from the point of view of the robot as he's becoming and it's beautiful, and it's one of the few instances where I see VR lending itself to narrative, because it's a narrative from beginning to end. It's not just special effects. So I'll send you the link to that as well. It's called I Philip.
Thanks. I'm interested, but yeah, there was a moment. I don't know if I do my post doctorate in. I was thinking of doing about other media, like augmented reality, also,
right?
Which is more friendly, actually.
Right.
More, yeah.
So, and last question is: any plans to shoot? Anything shooting? Actually, getting behind the camera again?
Well, I'm always shooting anyway, but with the crew, not really. But I have so many projects to finish that I'm not worried with that. If I shoot only next year, it's okay.
Well, it seems to be you got a lot on your plate. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And 90% goes to the feature, to Nothingness Club, and when I have time, I go to the other projects.
Yes.
So yeah, and I work with just 2 people, and now with just 1 because of pandemics. We have to get isolated, and so yeah, it's not the best time to shoot with masks and all that. We didn't shoot with masks. We had everybody was tested. Nobody would get out, so we could hug each other, which was something that I didn't do before or after the shooting. Only in that moment I was with many people in the old times.
Very good. Marjorie Wilson, I think, was I guess one of the commentators. I think you know her. She made a couple of comments or questions here. I believe you work with her. She said the music and magnetic pathways
Yeah, she was the one who made this happen in the States, all of the distribution of films in festivals. So it was really thanks to her that, yeah.
Well, great. Well, thanks, Edgar. It's been a pleasure. I
Yeah, it was my pleasure also.
It's been a pleasure, and I hope to hear a lot from you, a lot more in this club. And I'll send you some of those links for some of the films that we talked about, and hope the best. And hopefully we'll meet face to face, not just in the virtual plane.
Yeah, next year.
Next year, fingers crossed. So again, thanks a lot, Edgar, and we'll send you the link to the broadcast after we're done. You have a good day, and
you also.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, folks, that completes the final, the last interview with Edgar Pera we did today, and I hope to hear from him in the future. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We depend on subscriptions, and please like the button below if you're on Facebook. So until then, enjoy the rest of the day. Stay well and stay healthy. God bless.